So many people are moving to the Dallas, Texas metro, and maybe you're thinking about that move too. And when I was in your shoes, I was constantly asking myself, is it the right move and what is it actually like to live there? Do people that live there actually enjoy it? Well, in today's video, I'm going to interview my friend Brian Wang, who actually grew up in the DFW metro and moved away, but somehow found his way back. And we're going to talk about exactly why he moved away, why he moved back, and what life is actually like in Frisco, Texas and the surrounding DFW metro. Hey, it's Michael Caraway. I'm a realtor here in the Dallas, Texas metro, and on this channel, we talk about what it's like to live in the Dallas, Texas metro, as well as some of the best places to live so you can find the perfect fit for you. So if you're thinking about moving to the Dallas, Texas metro, you need to make sure that you watch this entire interview because Brian's going to speak exactly why he moved away in the first place, but what ended up drawing him back, and he reveals what life in Frisco, Texas is actually like. So without further ado, let's jump into the interview right now. Off, man. Tell us a little bit about who you are and kind of what you do for a living.
Yeah, that's great, man. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Brian Wang, and I'm a follower of Christ, and I am the husband of an amazing wife, Autumn, and then also dad to 3 girls, 7, 5, and 2. I was in ministry for 16 years, and now I am in Frisco, Texas, and am in insurance, and that was a fun transition there. And, I love Texas, but I spent the first 19 years in Texas, then Indiana, Missouri, and Florida. Got some more years from me before I decided to move back.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that. I'm really interested to kind of hear about your journey. You grew up in Texas, and so many people are now, here in 2023, they're moving from a lot of these places like California and New York and Chicago, all these bigger cities with higher cost of living and stuff. They're moving to Texas, and they're probably wondering right now, like, okay, you grew up here. Why did you leave? Was there something wrong with the state? What was kind of your opinion there? So I kind of want to hear that story of why you left initially and then what you did.
Great question. I never wanted to leave Texas. I grew up in Fort Worth. My family graduated from TCU. My dad played football at TCU. And so as a young kid, I wanted to be like my dad. And so TCU was where I was heading. Ended up getting a college scholarship. Unfortunately, that was not to TCU, but fortunately enough, it gave me an opportunity to get out of Texas for a little bit, not necessarily because I wanted to, but I was able to go to Purdue University on a athletic scholarship, played football up there. I loved my time, but the Midwest is a lot different than Texas. That is kind of the first initial reason for me leaving Texas. And I had no plans to stay away as long as I did. It's just kind of what happened.
Yeah, it's interesting. You never are necessarily planning on being away from home, I think, when you leave for as long as you are. And like you said earlier, like it's really interesting. I think you go through a lot of growth when you move out of state away from what you're comfortable with. And I think, a lot of people watching this today, that might be a concern, getting away from your comfort zone. And I can personally say, like, I've grown a ton just from that specifically, but then you get to experience different cultures and stuff like that. And Texas is way different than Iowa, way different than Colorado. And you kind of got to experience on the flip side of different places like Missouri and Indiana. So
when we moved from Missouri back to Texas, we moved into an apartment with a 2-year-old and a 2-week-old. And we spent a year in an apartment, and then we moved into a house in Richardson, and we were so pumped. One cool thing about the Richardson area that we moved into, there's a lot of creek lots in that area. And so there was a smaller home, and this was probably something that probably helpful information. We could talk more later. But so it was a small home. It was about 1,200 square feet, but had a wonderful backyard. It was huge. It was a creek lot. So we spent a lot of time in the backyard. So obviously playing football, I'm a little bit bigger than most people. So I'm around 6'7". And so I didn't realize like how the construction of some of these smaller homes in, the older Richardson area would kind of have an impact on me. But I was about, I was this far from hitting the ceiling. It felt like a lot. And then there's one hallway, but I felt like I was always having to like go through. And so we were in that house for 7 weeks. And the church I was working at came up to me and they're like, hey, we'd like you to jump on leadership and plant a church in Frisco. And I was like, I just moved into a home. Like I've just set some roots, and this is the third move, and we didn't want to move again and we had literally said 7 weeks previously, hey, we're not going to move for 10 years. This is awful. We don't want to do this again. But we did. Surprise. And one of the best things about Frisco that I encountered right away was the ceilings went from about 11, or no, it's not even 11, like 8 feet to 20 feet, and, open spaces, and everything was a little bit newer. You could see the stars at night. You can see the sun setting. So those are some of the great things about it, but have loved moving back. But moving, to your point, is there's a lot of great exciting parts about it. And there's also the drag parts that are exhausting and sometimes can keep you from doing what you need to do.
For sure. Yeah, I completely get that. And I don't know, that's a lot of moving for me. I don't know if I'd be able to do what you did, but I applaud you for that for sure. So when you moved to Frisco, like what year was that?
So we moved. So here's even a funny story about Frisco. So we moved in 2019. So we knew we needed to move because that was one of the requirements for taking the job in the fall of 2018. And so we were like, before we accepted the job, we drove up to what we thought was Frisco, ends up now being like the Colony area. You're like, man, this place isn't really that great. We like where we're at. And I think that really was us not wanting to get out of our comfort zone. Because we didn't go north of Tollway up to El Dorado, which is an area, or Main Street. So we really didn't know where we were, and we hadn't contacted or talked to a realtor yet because we'd just gone through that whole process. There was a house that hadn't been updated, had been on the market. It went off the market and popped back up. And Autumn, my wife, was like, hey, we should go see this. I was like, well, why haven't we looked at this before? It says it's been on the market for a while. And there was just a couple of updates that were done, and that kind of sealed the deal for us to go see it. And we were sold kind of once we saw it. We thought it was a great neighborhood. And the funny thing is, we thought it was going to be one of those, hey, let's do a lower price because it had been on the market for so long. But of course, someone put an offer in the same day we saw it. But luckily they chose us, and that's where we're still at.
That's awesome, man. So you feel like you landed in the right spot as far as within Frisco? You're pretty happy with that area?
Yeah, we love the area we're in. We're off of Teal and El Dorado, and when we moved there, we really didn't know much about Teal and El Dorado or just anything much about Frisco. We just knew it was in a decent location to where my office was going to be in the church, and so it was the great fit in those terms. But what have come to love is how close it is to everything. I did make a career change, and it's really close to the tollway, and just being close to the tollway and working down in Dallas, that was not in the plans when we moved there, but it's been a perfect fit. And there's so much opportunity. There's a number of parks that are really close to us. We love our small neighborhood. There's probably about 200 homes in our HOA, and it's maybe one of the smaller ones in Frisco. And so we've gotten to know our neighbors really well and have kind of created a great friendship and families through those neighbors. That's probably what I would say that I've enjoyed about Frisco is at least the neighborhood we've moved into, and a lot of neighborhoods that I'm familiar with, they're front yard neighborhoods. Even though we park in the back, there's an alley, which to some people moving to Dallas might not have ever experienced. We still have a lot of fun just being in the front yard and just being around other people and getting to know our neighbors that way.
That's awesome. And yeah, it's so interesting how that varies so much from neighborhood and community to community. I mean, we're in Allen, and in Allen, the neighborhood we're in, it's not a front yard community. We have the alleys, and you never see any kids outside the front side or the front side of the house or anything like that. But then, I'm showing houses in Frisco or Prosper or whatever, and you see kids running around all the time. You see neighbors hanging out on lawn chairs in the front yard. So it's just completely varies by neighborhood. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things that I don't think we realized when we moved to Frisco that we were missing, because we didn't have that in Richardson. We didn't have that in that neighborhood. And to your point, We know neighborhoods in the Richardson area, in the Canyon Creek area that are just like that. But it's amazing just the opportunity and the energy and the life change that you can have by just building those relationships with neighbors.
All right. So you mentioned like you're living in Frisco and you're having to commute to Dallas for work. What is that commute actually like? Like, because I think a lot of people see Frisco on a map and they see it being like super far north compared to Dallas. So maybe give a little bit of context roughly to like where you're commuting to and kind of how that commute is for you.
My commute is probably from El Dorado on the tollway down to kind of 635. It's an area called the High Five where 635 and 75 meet. And so on a day with not much traffic, or if I leave around 7, I could get to the office about 22 to 28, 30 minutes. If I leave a little bit later, if there's a lot of traffic, it can go up to 35 to 40 minutes. There are days where it's just one of those days and I decide just to drive down Preston Road and not even worry about the tollway, because there are days that you do want to do that. It'll save your life. And that's probably about 45 minutes and can be an hour. But if you leave early enough and have a great schedule where you can kind of plan around that, that's been something that I've loved about Frisco. And they're continuing to grow. The tollway's going up to Prosper and Salina and eventually probably into Gunner. And like, I think that time to get into Dallas will continue to drop.
What's your experience been so far with the Frisco School District? And do you have any opinions on whether it's been a great experience, bad experience? Like what's your overall opinion of the school district there?
Yeah. So one of the things that was drawing for us to come to Frisco was just the rating of the school district. And I think no matter what school district you're in, you can find good things and bad things about it. But our experience just from hearing from friends and others has been phenomenal. There's always a couple of situations that are like, okay, well, I don't know if I would have liked that in that situation if that was involving my child. But that has not been something we've been a part of. We actually there's a charter school in the DFW area called, I'm going to blank right now, that my daughter goes to, and it's called Founders Classical Academy. I just had to, I was thinking of the mascot is the Griffins, and that's what was stuck in my head, and I couldn't get Founders out. And so it's a charter school that it's kind of a lottery system to get in, and there's a number of them in the DFW area. And we were able to get in for my daughter Gracelyn, her kindergarten and first grade year, and my middle child will start there this next year, and she'll start kindergarten. And so we've loved it. It's a smaller school, but it's on the same kind of schedule and rotation as the Frisco Independent School District. And if we weren't able to get into that school, we'd probably there's the school that's closest to us is Bowles, and there's another one that's close to us as well that could be an opportunity for us to go to if we needed to. And so there's great communities around those elementary schools that we've been pleased with.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's one thing you hear almost every resident say, like if they're living in Frisco, they love the school district there. Have you heard from other people like in your neighborhood and stuff that are going to school, have kids going to school there, that there's like a lower student to teacher ratio? Because I know that's been pushed quite a bit as far as like marketing goes for that school district. And I didn't know if that was actually the case or not.
Yeah, that's a great question. That is the case. That is always what we have heard and have experienced, and our friends have experienced. And we have that now. I think I'm going to get the numbers off completely, but you can look up the stats. But somewhere between 1 in 15 to 1 in 20 is what our daughter has at Founders. And I know the structure that the school district has had is once attendance hits a certain number, they go and build another school. And so they've been ahead of the game for a number of years. And I think that's what has helped Frisco grow and not lose some of the ratings that they've had as a great school district.
Yeah, it's such a different model than like here in Allen, where there's one high school and it doesn't matter how many kids are coming up in elementary or middle school. They're all going there, and there's benefits to that too, but just totally. A completely different experience for kids for sure. I'm curious. as far as like, when you're with your family on the weekends, like what does a typical weekend in Frisco look like for you?
I would say one of the fun things about Frisco is that we are in just a great location to a number of phenomenal parks. There's a lake really close to us, and a lot of different dining and shopping districts. And so we love going and finding different playgrounds throughout the city. And that's one interesting thing about Frisco is there's a number of public playgrounds, but not one of them is the same. And they've done that actually strategically because they want people to get out and meet their neighbors. So one person will, hey, I love this park. I think it's Monarch Park. My wife would probably be the one that needs to be interviewed about parks. But we call it the Butterfly Park that's close to our home. And it is really cool. It has a big hill that kids can slide down and run around. And then just, there's some zip line type things. And then completely on the other side of town, there's a big park with big forts. Sorry about that. And but there's a unique spot in different parts of town that you get to experience something different and get to meet new people. And that was one of their strategies. They're like, hey, we want Frisco to meet Frisco. And so we've enjoyed that. And then there's also a lot of great churches actually that have some indoor playgrounds that we go to a lot around the area. And sometimes it's just kind of a walk. There's a lot of walking trails. It's not like Florida beaches or like Missouri Ozarks type. But we've loved just getting to, we like being outside. We'll also go to Kidzania is an indoor playground that we've gone to, and just a really cool place where kids get to experience different types of jobs, and they can be there for as long as they want. We like just going around, walking around the Colony, has a cool area that's about 20 minutes away, and there's just a lot of outdoor events too. Main Street Frisco is really fun just to walk down, and we go to the market down there a lot. And I'd say that's probably the most of what we would do on a weekend. We usually try to do something outside, and depending on the weather, depends on kind of how long we stay out there.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely, I would say, me living out in Colorado, you've been in Florida, like you don't get the same like outdoors in Texas that you would in a place like that. But there is like the ability and the opportunity created in a lot of different places in the suburbs for you to still get outside and experience some sort of nature. So I know like there's several nature preserves around. You can get into the woods. Grant Park is going to be an amazing spot. You've been on that trail, right?
Yeah, the trail's amazing. And so Grand Park is, when it's finished, it's going to be bigger than Central Park. And the city took it over a number of years ago, and there was some cleaning up of what the past ownership of that land had kind of dumped that they had to do. But in the interim of them doing kind of their final project, they put a great walking trail out there, and it's really fun. And there's a lot of people that take advantage of it every single day. It's great walking, biking. I think those are the two things. They don't let people run on it. When people are running on it, I decide not to run. I enjoy walking. But it's really cool that they were like, hey, we know this isn't forever in terms of it's going to be so much more, but we want to let people know that Grand Park is here, it's coming, and you can enjoy parts of it right now.
For sure. Yeah. So that's kind of the trade-off, I think. In obviously, I can only speak from my experience, but you move here, you don't get as much scenery like mountains or oceans, but you can still get outside and do some trails. And the trade-off that you get is that you can live out in the suburbs and you can be around a bunch of town centers and restaurants and shopping that, at least personally, I didn't necessarily have that many options in Colorado or Iowa, living outside the city. And so it kind of is it's a beautiful blend, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree. And that's what keeps us in Frisco as we just think about how close we are to a number of these things. And I would say the crazy thing for us is we're in West Frisco. And I would say the Northwest is probably, it's finalizing its grand finale of what's going to be in Northwest Frisco. The PGA is about to open up there. And with that, a whole new sort of outdoor activities. And there's 2 or 3 parks in that area that are going to open up. And then there's a great biking trail up there. And so we're excited about the things to come as well that we haven't even gotten to experience. And I know one of the things that from the city of Frisco was focused on is how many people are leaving Frisco to go enjoy, like Legacy West is a really cool area to go down to, just south of Plano or just south of Frisco in Plano. And it's really close to the Star, which is a great area. That's another area that we've gone to and we enjoy. And that's the unique thing about Frisco, I would say, is Grandscape is the place in the colony. There's so many things within driving distance, 5 to 10 minutes, that it's like, wow, I don't really have to go that far. But Frisco was seeing how many people were leaving Frisco to go to Legacy West or go to Grandscape. And they've since brought on some opportunities for people to get to experience that in Frisco.
Absolutely. Yeah. Frisco's truly, it's become kind of the epicenter of everything in the North DFW. I guess the suburbs, right? And, there's so much, you mentioned the PGA headquarters, and you have Universal Studios opening up a park here, just a ton of headquarters opening up in Frisco. And people, I think, that are living here are definitely concerned. Maybe you can speak to this a little bit on where you stand, but home prices are already extremely steep in Frisco. I think the median is hovering around $700,000, whereas if you went over to Allen or McKinney, you're going to be closer to fours and the fives. So there's a pretty significant difference for just a few miles. With all of the hype around Frisco, like, are you seeing any downfalls to all the amazing things that are happening there? It sounds weird to say, but
but I think it's real. It's like, what is the impact really going to be? Like, there's a lot of excitement when HEB opened up in Frisco, and it was the first HEB that was opening up in North Texas. And so the lines that you just avoided Main Street and Legacy in that area for a couple of months. And then they were building another one in Plano, and that alleviated some of that pressure. But Frisco is attracting a lot of things that people from around Texas want to experience. And then with some of the new, like we're talking about the addition to, Universal Studios, a lot of people are concerned about, what all is this going to attract? And are we poisoning the water of, what makes Frisco great? And I would say there's a lot of people that would say yes. And then I'd say there's others that are like, hey, this is just a great opportunity to grow, and our city is going to continue to grow, and it'll bring jobs, and the economy will be better in Frisco than other areas because of what's coming. And so I would say, for me personally, I think it's hit or miss. I've lived in some areas that are close to, theme parks. I lived in Branson, Missouri for a number of years, and there's a ton of traffic in certain areas, and you just don't go to those areas. And then a lot of y'all are going like, where's Branson, Missouri? You should look it up. It's pretty interesting. But I think for me, long term, I'd love if we could find a, place outside of the city, quiet. My wife would love animals. But the problem is we really don't know what we want, because we want that, but we also want the closeness to things. We want to be close to great grocery stores. We want to be close to great schools, to great entertainment. Another thing I didn't even mention, another thing that is opening up that is, helping as well. Frisco just on March 4th, they're opening up a new public library that they've been building for the past 2 years. And that's the thing that I think they had a great one, but as they continue to see the need and looking ahead and looking forward, they're like, hey, we want to shift things. We want to build something for our future and what's going on. And I think that's the thing that when you live in Frisco, you have to be okay with, and you have to think about both sides of it, because you can't have one without the other. And I think for me, if I would maybe prefer long-term, kind of quiet place I can check out the sunsets, where I can kind of breathe a little bit more. But Frisco has been a great middle ground for us in that we're close enough to that and can experience it, but also have a lot of fun with what a big city entails. And so the traffic, I think, is just something that you're going to deal with. I don't know if I really have an opinion about the Universal Studios thing. I do see a lot of what people are saying in terms of, hey, it could cause so much congestion, but I also see where it's like, well, hey, maybe it won't. And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening there. But no matter what is happening, Frisco is continuing to grow a lot more from the little railroad stop town that it was a long time ago.
Yeah, and they, it's reported that there's going to be more office space in Frisco, eventually then downtown Dallas. And so that just kind of gives people the idea, the scale of what's happening in Frisco. And you go there now, and I wouldn't even say like that. I would never think that there'd be, that much office space, but there's so much more opportunity for development coming in. So there's a lot of growth for Frisco, and that opens up the ability for, like what you said, to move a little bit further out into a little more peaceful area where you're not surrounded by a bunch of people, and have Frisco be that hub that you commute
Yep.
to. Whereas, 10 years ago, everybody was like, okay, where's Dallas? And I need to be 30 minutes away from Dallas. It's
Yeah.
now Frisco, you know?
Exactly. That's the interesting part. And I think it's that I'm going to get the number wrong, but I think there was 16 major companies moved their headquarters to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I think a lot of those were moving straight to Frisco. And I think that's what they're seeing. They're seeing the future there, and they're seeing the opportunity. And I think the biggest question, to kind of go back to what you're saying, is like, how much is too much? And what are you willing to give up, and what are you willing to give in? And I think that's a question that everyone living in Frisco has to continue to ask themselves. And also that when there's opportunities for more things to come in. But right now it's a exciting place to live and to kind of see the growth that's happening.
Absolutely. So on that note, we're about wrapped up here, but I do want to ask you a few more questions. And I'm kind of curious, who is Frisco perfect for, and who is Frisco not for, from your perspective?
Great question. I would say I think Frisco is great for young couples that are wanting to start a family, or young families that are wanting to get a little bit out of the city, or looking for a new state to move to. And Texas is an area that they've looked at. Frisco is great because of it has basically everything you need for it to be a huge city, but it technically still isn't when you compare it to Dallas. But I would say what I've continually noticed is how many young families are moving to Frisco. And so I think that's the ideal. And with those young families, a lot of grandparents are moving with those families too. And so I think it's a unique opportunity. And I would say if you're looking for a spot that you can be in the city but close enough to the pasture, Frisco is awesome. But if you want a little bit more quiet, Prosper and Salina used to be the place to go, but now it's Gunner and beyond. So I think, to your point, I think there is something for everyone in this area. I would say if you want a little bit of a slower pace in terms of the city not growing a lot, Frisco is probably not the right place for you, even though I think it's getting close to quote unquote capacity, and then it would move into sustainability, and that'll be interesting. But yeah, final answer, younger families.
Dude, really, really appreciate your time today. I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people hearing your story and kind of how you've navigated moving away from and back to Dallas. So really appreciate it, man. And if you want to follow Brian, you can follow him on Instagram at Brian Wang C1. And you can reach out to him at bwang@c1ig.com. He is my personal insurance advisor, one of the best around, and I recommend him for all my clients. So as you look to purchase a home here in the Dallas, Texas metro, make sure to give him a call. So no matter where you are in the process, reach out. I'd love to help you find the right place to call home in the Dallas, Texas metro. Shoot me a text, give me a call, send me an email anytime, seriously. I'm here to help you find the perfect fit here in the Dallas, Texas metro. Until next time, I'll see you later.